That Thursday afternoon, after loading the tools into my pickup truck, my mood was far from joyful. I'd been working with a client for the last few weeks, but he seemed increasingly uncertain about the design. His constant requests for changes had become frustrating, and the latest one that morning required me to dismantle a significant part of the work already done. To make matters worse, I had to meet with the architect and engineer to revise the structural plans according to the client's new demands. As a result, the next day unexpectedly turned into a day off. My name is Kenneth Morrison. I'm a carpenter and the owner of a small workshop that specializes in creating first-class stairs. I work with elite clients, wealthy homeowners, hotels, restaurants, and offices, willing to pay over $50,000 for a custom-made staircase. At 34, I've been married for 4 years to Daphne Tupper, a 29-year-old successful lawyer at the prestigious law firm Kramer Bowen and Hendrick, specializing in commercial and intellectual property law. We haven't had any children yet, as Daphne prioritizes her career. When I arrived home at 4:30 p.m., I was surprised to see my wife's car parked at the entrance. It was unusual for her to come home early on a Thursday. She typically worked late, only finishing early on Fridays. As I entered through the back door, I noticed a small issue with the water pressure, and the fact that Daphne was in the shower upstairs seemed odd since she usually showered either in the morning or before bed. After changing into comfortable clothes, I went upstairs to figure out why Daphne had returned home early. As expected, she had just finished showering and was now wearing revealing black fishnet stockings with a new black dress laid out on the bed, ready to be worn. "Hi, honey. Why are you home so early? Did I forget something? Do we have plans for the evening that I don't remember?" I asked. She looked at me with an expression that betrayed nervousness despite her efforts to hide it. Taking a deep breath, she replied, "No, Kenneth, you haven't forgotten anything. I have plans for the evening, and you're not invited. I'll be gone until Sunday afternoon. I'll be spending the weekend with Derek Kramer." Confused, I asked, "What do you mean? Is this a work trip?" Shaking her head, she answered, "No, Kenneth, this isn't a work trip. Derek has booked a hotel room for us. I won't be here this weekend." "That's not going to happen," I said firmly. "I can't let my wife spend the weekend with another man." "Well, you better get used to it, Kenneth, because that's what Derek wants. And I advise you not to test him," she smirked. "So you're volunteering for this? You expect me to just accept it, bury my feelings, let you leave, and come back as a faithful wife?" I replied, sarcasm in my voice. "I never said it was a temporary arrangement. Derek has made it clear that he wants this to be permanent. So yes, suck it up and don't make a fuss. Trust me, your life will be easier if you just accept it," she said, her voice firm. "We'll see about that," I said. "I won't stand for this, Daphne. You have to think about the consequences of your actions. I won't let some vain man dictate my life. If you think I'm easily influenced, you're mistaken. You're in for a surprise." By the time she finished preparing for the evening, I went downstairs, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and noticed a Mercedes approaching. Derek, the arrogant man himself, got out and walked up to the front door. He rang the bell. "Kenneth, could you open the door for Derek?" Daphne called from upstairs. I quickly dialed the alarm code on the tailgate and set my phone to record, tucking it into my t-shirt pocket. I settled in the living room, getting ready for the encounter with Derek Kramer. Daphne had joined the firm 3 years earlier, and our first meeting with Derek took place at the company's Christmas celebration. Derek, a man in his 40s, had an air of authority. He was cordial with colleagues, flirted with female employees, and charmed both his peer spouses and the husbands of female colleagues. His behavior, radiating arrogance and contempt, made an instant dislike for him. Daphne descended angrily down the stairs and opened the door. I watched from the living room, sipping my beer. "Sorry for the delay, Derek. I don't know where my husband's manners have gone," she said, adopting a submissive tone. She whispered something to Derek, but I couldn't make out the words. "Hey man, I heard you don't agree with Daphne spending the..." Derek growled as he entered the living room, looking like a school principal scolding a student. I was shocked by his arrogance, thinking he could act like a boss in my own house. "Get out of my house before I call the police," I said, clenching my fists in anger. He laughed and Daphne grinned next to him. "What do you think the cops will do?" he mocked. "Nothing. They won't do anything. Do you know why?" Suddenly, he noticed my phone and tried to stop it from recording, but it was locked with a password. He threw it on the ceramic floor, and the screen cracked from the impact. "Listen up, smartass. Your wife is going to spend this weekend with me, no matter how you feel about it. She'll be with me whenever I want, and your thoughts on it don't matter at all. Do you understand? If you try to interfere, there will be consequences. Your life will be a nightmare compared to what lies ahead. So, for this weekend, be quiet and don't cause any problems. If I hear that you upset Daphne, mention a divorce, or do something stupid like trying to contact my wife, I won't hesitate to expose your suspicious money laundering activities or the illegal content on your computer." I chose to pretend that I didn't know anything about it. The chance of this information becoming public seemed low. I had never been involved in money laundering or illegal activities. "This can be done easily," he threatened. "Transferring files to a computer is simple." I responded mechanically, "If you downloaded them to my computer, doesn't that mean you already have illegal content?" He smiled smugly. "That's the difference between us. What's forbidden to you is perfectly acceptable to people with powerful connections like me. I strongly recommend you continue to behave like a working-class person and not bother people of higher status. Do you understand?" I was shocked by the words I had just heard. Such a conversation would have been outrageous even in a fictional comedy. Yet this man was dead serious. "And I urge you not to seek revenge on me or Daphne," he continued. "I don't want the infection passing from you to Daphne and then to me. I'm not going to ask Daphne to stop being intimate with you, at least not yet. Can't you see that I'm just trying to be reasonable? If you cross the line, I'll know about it." "Okay, now let's go, honey," he said, addressing my wife. They headed for the front door, and Daphne grabbed her bag and left without saying a word, not even looking in my direction. The fact that he called her honey made the situation surreal. Instead of pure anger, I felt a mixture of fury and disbelief. At that moment, I silently thanked the robber who broke into my house a year before I met Daphne. He had forced me to install a thorough surveillance and alarm system. I had set up motion-sensitive cameras and voice-responsive microphones throughout the house, capable of recording everything and storing it in the cloud. I never told Daphne the system could be switched to recording mode while we were at home, so she was kept in the dark. Right before she opened the door to this unfortunate man, I activated it. At the same time, I turned on my mobile phone's recording feature, hoping that Kramer would notice the camera and try to disable it. That would allow him to speak more freely, unaware he was being recorded. This could provide valuable information for a potential divorce. The phone that fell to the floor was my work cell. Working with wealthier clients, I quickly realized that giving them my personal number meant being available 24/7. Having a separate work phone allowed me to disconnect at the end of the day and respond to messages the next morning. At least I still had a way to communicate. I grabbed my personal phone and dialed the number of my business lawyer and close friend, Harry. Harry had married my older sister Jennifer 10 years ago. Their marriage was filled with happiness until tragedy struck. Jennifer tragically drowned during a trip to Guadalupe. Despite his loss, Harry remained a beloved member of our family. 3 years later, he found love again with Kristen, and after a year of dating, they exchanged vows. My parents and I were the guests of honor at their wedding, and to this day, Harry and Kristen feel like family. When I found myself in a difficult situation, I turned to Harry for help. I told him about the threats from Kramer and what had happened during my wife's weekend trip. Without hesitation, Harry offered his assistance. He advised me not to leave the house, to shut off all means of communication, and to wait for his arrival. He assured me he and Kristen would bring dinner in an hour, which gave me a much-needed sense of confidence. As I recalled the events of the last hour, the realization that our bond wasn't as strong as I had thought hit me hard. 5 years ago, my relationship with Daphne began at a mutual friend's birthday party. Despite not knowing many people there, I struck up a conversation with Daphne, who turned out to be the sister of an army friend of the birthday boy, someone who had served in Afghanistan. Our bond grew stronger, and a week later we started dating. The following year, we tied the knot. All this time, I continued working for Mr. Duncan, the founder of the small company I was employed at. Craig Duncan was a well-known woodworking specialist in our area, but his accounting and management skills left much to be desired. When I was in college, he hired me as a part-time accountant to help with his books. As the workload increased, Mr. Duncan entered into 3 major contracts that required more attention than he could handle. Despite the difficulties, the clients insisted he take on these projects. As a result, he asked me to assist him with his work. At first, I ran errands, delivered goods, and helped move large items. It quickly became clear that I was a fast learner and well-suited for the job. Though I had graduated with a degree in accounting, my love for practical work pushed me to do an internship after receiving my certificate. Eventually, I became Mr. Duncan's assistant and, with my parents' financial support, bought out his share in the business. Despite underestimation from the company's lawyers, who viewed me as just a simple store employee, I persisted. My company thrived by focusing on fewer, more profitable projects. A few months earlier, I had hired 2 assistants, and my income and expenses exceeded those of many lawyers in my wife's entourage. Despite my success, Daphne never knew about these accomplishments. Reality hit me hard when Kristen and Harry arrived with Chinese food and beer. Kristen hugged me comfortingly and said, "I can't believe Daphne would do this to you. It's so out of character for her." After Harry gave me an encouraging hug, he added, "Don't worry. We'll figure it out together. Let's have dinner, and then I'll check your files." I told them about Daphne's unfriendly attitude when I got home after lunch. After we ate, I pulled out my laptop and found files with recordings from the cameras and microphones. Fortunately, the conversations were very clear. "I can't believe what I just heard," Harry exclaimed. "Pretty arrogant guy, huh?" I remarked. "No, more like downright stupid," Harry replied. "Is this guy 40 or 42 years old? That means he has about 15 years of legal experience under his belt. He's not a beginner, and yet he's so self-assured that he doesn't realize sometimes the best tactic is just to remain silent. Your clever move of pretending the phone wasn't recording after he smashed it worked. He bought into it and revealed all the information we needed. I asked Harry if it was legal to use the recording since it was made without his consent. "Absolutely," Harry assured me. "This is your home. You have the right to record anything you want here, so there's nothing to worry about." "Is that what you mean?" I asked, uncertain. "No, that's not what I'm talking about," Harry replied. "We need to proceed cautiously." I did some digging. Christina was generous enough to get behind the wheel and pick up the food. Turns out our target, Kramer, is the son of the founder of the law firm. "Did you already know about this?" I confirmed that I had. Maybe you didn't know, Harry continued, but his father, Marvin Kramer, has a solid reputation. He wasn't a great lawyer, but most of the judges in this region were his old college friends, which gave him a significant edge in winning cases. This is now a problem. His son, Derek, has decided to follow in his footsteps. With his extensive connections to friendly judges, it will be incredibly difficult to get a positive ruling in our favor, no matter the legality of his actions. So, you're saying I'm going to find myself in a difficult situation no matter what? I asked. Not quite, Harry replied. It will be tough to win, but it's possible. I have powerful connections. The key is gathering enough evidence to build a solid case against him. I have a strategy. But what about the judges who always support him? I asked. How can we overcome that? We won't, Harry said. But we don't need to take this case to a civil court. We're going straight to criminal court. Just then, our conversation was interrupted by a knock on the front door. A brunette stood on the porch. Hello, Mr. Morrison, she greeted. Hi, Laura. Come in, Harry responded. Kenneth, this is Laura Foster. She's a computer expert from the private detective agency we work with. I contacted her after our phone conversation today. We brought Laura up to speed, and I asked her to listen to the recording, particularly the part where Kramer mentions downloading evidence to my computer. Laura listened carefully and then outlined a detailed plan. In either of the two possible scenarios, they will come in the afternoon, possibly with your wife, and hack into your computer. They'll change the date and upload their material to make it appear as if it was done before Kramer's visit. If that happens, your camera system will record everything. Before you leave for work in the morning, make sure to put your device into recording mode. Laura explained, taking a small gray box from her bag. Another option is to give them remote access to your computer for potential harm. I'll install this module in front of your modem to monitor everyone trying to access your router and track what they're attempting to upload or download. In the meantime, transfer all personal or confidential information to a USB drive and then erase everything from your computer. Harry added, It's obvious she knows what she's doing. Let's get started, Laura continued confidently. Kenneth, the only evidence you have against him for blackmail is the recording. If you try to build a case solely on that, it could be easily dismissed. Blackmail is often not seen as a serious crime by the public, and judges with connections may side with Kramer. The ideal situation would be if Kramer planted illegal material on your computer, then reported it to the police, providing false evidence that you possess illegal content. That way, a trace will indicate that the illegal activity occurred without your participation. With the warning we received from Kramer, which we will document, we'll have strong evidence to present in court. If he becomes involved in criminal activities, especially with illegal materials, his judicial friends will likely distance themselves from him. I found it disturbing and abnormal, but Harry explained further, Yes, it's unpleasant, but Kramer is still dangerous. Here's another thing, don't use your computer for the next few days. If Kramer carries out his plan and accuses you, the police may want to check your computer's records to see if anyone accessed illegal files. By not using it, we can keep the records clean, which will be helpful. Also, make sure your mobile phone doesn't connect to your home Wi-Fi in the coming days, so they can't use your phone instead of your computer. Laura finished installing the surveillance module and erasing all confidential information from my devices. She assured us, the module will send us copies of any access requests. As soon as we have information, I'll contact Harry and you. Good luck, guys. After she left, Harry suggested, let's focus on more practical matters. Kenneth, do you want to start the divorce process now? Or wait until Daphne returns and try to sort things out? No, I want to get divorced as soon as possible. I can't stay married to a woman who is easily influenced by self-proclaimed strong personalities. I'm confident in this decision, I replied firmly. Okay, Harry said. I'll contact Claudia Milton tomorrow. She's a family law specialist at my firm and known for her fairness and efficiency. I'll ask her to contact you as soon as possible. I think you'll enjoy working with her. We continued our conversation, and I gave Harry access to my recording system so he could receive real-time updates and save information to the cloud. By 11 p.m., Christina and Harry left, and I took sedatives to help me sleep. The next day, at 8:30 a.m., Claudia Milton called. After discussing my situation with Harry, she asked me to come to her office at 11 a.m. During our meeting, Claudia showed sympathy for my situation. After learning about Derek Kramer's dubious reputation, she reassured me, explaining that since I bought the house before I met Daphne, and her name wasn't on the deed, the property still belongs to me. Since we have no children, the divorce process would be simple. Worried about my business, I asked if I would have to sell it and split the profits. Claudia called Harry to discuss my concerns, and he quickly calmed us both down. The prenuptial agreement clearly states that your company belongs solely to you, and she has no rights to it. Even if they try, they have no legitimate grounds to take further action. After meeting with Claudia at 12:30 p.m., I discussed financial matters with her. She reassured me that everything was being handled efficiently, and informed me that Daphne would receive the divorce papers at her office on Monday. After replacing my damaged mobile phone, I spent the rest of the weekend working in the yard and watching my favorite TV shows. Despite still holding a grudge against Daphne, I couldn't fully accept the reality of our situation. I knew I'd eventually mourn the end of our marriage, but my emotions were too raw at that moment. The thought of Daphne returning home on Sunday haunted me. I agonized over whether to sleep in the guest room or force her to do so. Eventually, I realized that this was my house, and she had abandoned me. I decided not to share a bed with her and moved all her things to the guest room. I then bought a new door handle with a lock for the bedroom door and kept the key in my pocket. The next evening, when I heard the sound of Derek's car pulling up, I turned on the surveillance system. I watched as Daphne kissed her boss for a long time before getting out of the car. I watched as Daphne kissed Derek goodbye and waved him off as he drove away. Sitting in the living room, seemingly engrossed in a book, I didn't respond when she entered. "Hi, dear. How was your weekend?" she asked, though her nervousness was evident despite her attempt to hide it. I decided not to answer, keeping my attention fixed on the book. "Okay, keep sulking. Derek was right when he said you'd act like this," she muttered, implying that I lacked the intelligence to understand her demands or the emotional maturity to admit my shortcomings. She headed up the stairs, and once she left, I started counting 1, 2, 3. "Kenneth Morrison, what's going on? Did you put a lock on our bedroom?" she called out, storming down the hallway. "Correction, my bedroom," I replied calmly. "Your things have been moved to the guest bedroom. You'll live there until you find a new apartment." "What the hell is this? Derek should know about this. It wasn't part of our deal," she shouted. "What kind of deal? I didn't agree to any of your partner's ridiculous demands. Either you stay in the guest room or you leave. Maybe Kramer's wife will take you to her bed," I retorted, unflinching. She glared at me in silence, stormed into the guest room, and slammed the door. I followed her upstairs and shouted through the door, "And if we're talking about deals, what's in it for me?" When I didn't get an answer, I turned and went back downstairs. About 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed with messages from an unknown number. The messages were demanding, "Hey, why don't you let Daphne into her own room? I think I've explained everything clearly. I won't pay attention to your childish crisis. Cook Daphne your favorite dinner and apologize. If you behave yourself for the rest of the week, I'll allow Daphne to be intimate with you next weekend." If you don't listen, you'll see that my warnings aren't empty threats. Follow my instructions implicitly. Do you understand? I was shocked by the words I read. This man had no empathy, was disconnected from reality, and was completely out of touch. I decided not to respond but took a screenshot of the conversation and sent it to Harry. 3 minutes later, Harry replied, "Unbelievable. This man really thinks highly of himself, but he's just a first-class idiot. Let's not waste time answering him." Kramer sent several more messages, demanding recognition, but I ignored them. Eventually, he stopped contacting me. I didn't see Daphne again that evening. I went to bed with the door locked and the recording system on. I also sent a text message to one of my assistants, letting them know I would be late the next day. The following morning, after Daphne left, I took my time getting ready for the day. I decided to cook myself breakfast while transferring the recordings I made the previous night to the system. It was late in the morning when Daphne finally emerged from the guest room. She had already showered in the guest bathroom and left without breakfast. To my surprise, she didn't attempt to use my computer, which I had been worried about. At that moment, a message from Claudia Milton appeared on my phone. "Hello, Kenneth. I informed Harry that the divorce papers will be served at 10:15 a.m. today. Before heading to the store, I double-checked that my home security system was still recording and set to alert me if triggered. I had an appointment with the architect at 11 a.m. to finalize the changes for the client. I took care of small tasks until it was time for the meeting. I expected a call from Daphne shortly after she received the papers, but it never came. At 10:45 a.m., I texted Harry, sharing my surprise at Daphne's silence. This must mean she discussed the divorce papers with Kramer. Maybe they're already planning something. I'll contact Laura. Harry replied, "Keep me informed." The meeting with the architect went well, allowing me to stay focused on work. I spent the rest of the day collecting tools and tidying up the store. At 3:12 p.m., my phone signaled an alert. I quickly messaged Harry to let him know. "The show has started." He replied with a thumbs up. I logged in to the security system and watched the events unfold. Daphne and an unknown man entered our home office and turned on my computer. They exchanged only a few words, and a few minutes later, the man decrypted my password. He inserted a USB flash drive into the computer and began engaging in suspicious activity. Fortunately, I was able to capture clear pictures of his face. Meanwhile, Daphne went to the guest room and packed her things into trash bags, while her suitcases were still in the closet of the master bedroom. After finishing his business, the man shut down the computer and told Daphne he was leaving. She left the room at 3:56 p.m., shortly before the recording stopped. At that moment, Harry contacted me. "Okay, Kenneth, go home and act natural. I think they might involve the police today or tomorrow, so be ready for the inspector's visit. It takes several hours to get a search warrant, so expect them tomorrow." Worried, I asked, "Is it possible?" "I've already contacted Stephen Lindsay, a trusted criminal defense attorney, and shared all the necessary information, including recordings," Harry reassured me. Stephen reassured me, "It'll be the easiest thing of the year." I also gave Harry a code to access my alarm system records in case of an arrest. After some further discussion, we ended the call. As I drove home, anxiety weighed heavily on me. Fortunately, the evening passed without any police visits, calls from Daphne, or unpleasant messages from Kramer. I made myself a sandwich and ate it while watching TV. Despite wanting to confide in my parents about everything, I decided to wait for the storm to subside. Trying to explain computer hacking and cloud video storage to my mother seemed pointless and would only cause unnecessary worry. The next day, while shopping, I received another notice of an invasion of my home. Just like last time, I quickly texted Harry and checked my security system. After the incident, the police entered my house and tried to turn off the alarm. It seemed like they succeeded because the connection was lost. Harry told me he had seen everything and sent the photos to Stephen Lindsay. About an hour later, 2 policemen showed up at the store and arrested me. They handcuffed me and took me in a police car, quickly reading me my rights and beginning the interrogation. I chose not to answer any questions. When we arrived at the police station, my phone and wallet were taken from me, and I was placed in a cell with 5 other people. The room was quiet. Everyone avoided eye contact and stared at the tiled floor. 3 hours later, a security guard appeared and took me to a meeting room where I was supposed to meet my lawyer. Confused, I asked how they knew who my lawyer was, but they didn't answer and left me alone in the room. 10 minutes later, the door opened, and Derek Kramer walked in with a confident smile. He sat down across from me, maintaining a silence that established his superiority, his smug expression declaring himself the winner of this confrontation. "Have you finally realized the gravity of the situation?" he asked. I remained silent. "I asked you a question, Morrison. Speak up, you worthless idiot," he growled. I still didn't answer. "It will be your word against mine," he warned, his grin widening. "The opinion of a carpenter will be opposed to the opinion of one of the most famous lawyers in the city. Want to predict the result?" He stood up, continuing, "Looks like you need time to think about what I've told you. Let's meet tomorrow morning and talk further. Perhaps a night in the shared cell with your companions will help you clarify the situation," he remarked before leaving the room. I was taken back to the cell where there were now only 4 people. Later that afternoon, another visitor came to see me. I was led back to the same meeting room, where a tall, blond man with a serious expression was waiting for me. He stood up as I entered and introduced himself as Stephen Lindsay. "Harry contacted me earlier today after he couldn't reach you. We had a feeling you might have been arrested," he said. I quickly listed all the events of the day, including the disturbing visit from Derek Kramer. Stephen's jaw dropped in shock, but he remained silent. "You have a court hearing scheduled for tomorrow morning," Stephen continued. "There will most likely be a large bail amount, but Harry will take care of that. I know it's going to be a difficult night, but try to hold on. Both Harry and I are here to support you. In the meantime, keep stubbornly refusing to answer their questions. I've officially taken over your case and will make sure Kramer doesn't bother you anymore," he reassured me. The next day, I appeared before a judge on charges of possessing prohibited materials while maintaining my innocence. Bail was set at $25,000, and I was released under the condition that I was forbidden from leaving the city or contacting my future ex-wife, Derek Kramer, or anyone from their office. However, I was allowed to continue working in my store. Stephen returned my cell phone and wallet, and we went to a late lunch where our conversation continued. Yesterday at the police station, I refrained from providing unnecessary information for privacy reasons, Stephen said. But after making a few calls, I found out a lot of intriguing information about DK Kramer. Now, let me offer you some comforting news. First of all, it takes several hours to obtain a search warrant. Only after that can the authorities examine the evidence found and issue an arrest warrant. In your case, you were taken away before they finished searching your house. And despite the restrictions on communicating with you or Harry, Derek Kramer was still allowed to visit you. These circumstances strongly suggest that the whole situation was planned, which is certainly against the law. Harry had mentioned that Kramer had influence over many judges, but Stephen replied, "Not at all. You can't maintain so many connections without making enemies. I'm not sure what I'll find at home, but I pray that my wife and her treacherous accomplice didn't take everything." "Don't worry about it," Harry reassured me. After reactivating the system and restarting the recording, I went to my house right after the police left. No one was in sight, so I decided to head back to the store, pick up the car, and then go home for a much-needed shower. When I returned, I received a message from the architect confirming that the updated plan had been approved by the client. This was good news because it meant I could focus on work the next day. However, when I arrived home, I was greeted by chaos. Every corner of the house had been thoroughly searched. Setting up the damaged computer, I was confident I wouldn't find anything suspicious, but as I began to put things in order, tears welled up in my eyes. Just a week ago, I had been happy in what I thought was a strong marriage. Now I found myself accused of a crime, on the verge of divorce, and under the influence of my wife's manipulative boss. I couldn't help but wonder what I had done to deserve this. Fortunately, the press didn't pursue me, likely too focused on a recently uncovered multi-billion-dollar scandal to bother with someone like me. At the end of the following week, Stephen contacted me with important news. I was relieved to learn that all charges against me had been dropped. It seemed that the inspector assigned to my case was not easily influenced, especially when it came to blackmail. Despite Kramer's attempts to manipulate the situation, the inspector remained firm and didn't waste any time. Derek Kramer was charged with blackmail, fabrication of evidence, and possession of prohibited materials involving children. Daphne was implicated in the conspiracy surrounding these crimes. After speaking with Stephen, Harry called me and invited me to dinner that evening. On my way to Harry's, I was contacted by my family lawyer, Claudia Milton. Kenneth, the lawyer representing Daphne, contacted me today and informed me that she's ready to sign the divorce papers in their current form, but she asked for an hour-long face-to-face meeting with you before finalizing the process. The meeting can take place in his office. Despite my reluctance to see Daphne, I understood that this meeting could speed up the divorce process, so I agreed. I instructed Claudia to arrange the meeting. The evening spent with Harry and Kristen was a much-needed respite, and for the first time in 2 weeks, I felt truly relaxed. Kristen cooked a delicious dinner of coconut shrimp and rice. When I returned home, I felt satisfied, though the upcoming meeting with Daphne on Wednesday still left me uneasy. At Claudia's office, she gave me a bit of advice. I'm not sure of her motives, but I think it's necessary to warn you. A criminal case has been opened against her. Please be careful not to give her any information that could be used against you in court. Since we can't check her for recording devices, keep in mind that she might record your conversation. Thanks for the warning, I replied, and was then taken to a small private meeting room where Daphne was already waiting. I had expected to meet the same angry and arrogant Daphne I'd encountered in the previous weeks, but the Daphne standing in front of me seemed broken and vulnerable. Despite feeling a surge of compassion, the memories of her questionable behavior with Kramer quickly erased any positive feelings I might have had. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me, Kenneth," she said. "What can you tell me?" "After everything that happened," I replied coldly. Tears streamed down her face as she spoke. "Kenneth, I am overwhelmed with shame for the way I treated you. You're such a wonderful husband, and you don't deserve the pain I've caused. I was blinded by Derek Kramer's manipulations, but when I found out the charges against you were dropped, and that he and I could face the consequences, it knocked me out of my rut. I can't look at myself in the mirror, all because of a stupid mistake." She continued, reflecting on herself, spontaneously analyzing her behavior. She didn't ask me for any information or question me. "Kenneth, I understand that our relationship has come to an end. If I were you, I'd want a divorce too. I don't hold it against you for ending things. I want you to know that I quit my job. I told Derek Kramer I don't want to talk to him anymore. I went back to my parents' house and told them everything. They're very angry with me. There's a tense and unwelcoming atmosphere at home." I stared at her in silence. There was no easy way out of this situation. She had brought this upon herself, and now she had to deal with the consequences. The coming months, maybe even years, will be difficult for me, Kenneth, she said softly. I don't know what the future holds. The only thing I want is that, one day, when everything calms down, we'll have the opportunity to become friends. It seemed like a distant possibility, very distant. We'll have to wait and see, I replied. I wish you luck. I got up to leave the room. Having learned her lesson, Daphne decided not to seek retribution any longer. She cooperated with the authorities and made a plea deal for Derek Kramer, which ultimately led to her relocating to another city. Unfortunately, I lost touch with her after that. When the blackmail accusations against Kramer came to light, 2 more victims came forward, which led to Kramer being sentenced to 12 years in prison. Since the police had recordings of all my conversations with him, my testimony wasn't even necessary. After Kramer was convicted, I filed a civil lawsuit against him and what was left of his firm. I eventually reached a settlement amounting to $2 million, most of which went to Harry. Despite pretending to be outraged, I was glad to compensate Harry for his invaluable help. My business has been thriving. I'm currently finalizing a deal to acquire a specialized door manufacturer, which will streamline our operations. With a team of 6 employees who feel like family, I'm content with how things are going. After the divorce, Harry and Kristen invited me to a barbecue party, where I met Kristen's younger sister, Katie. We immediately clicked, and we've been dating for several weeks now. I'm excited to see where this relationship takes us. A few weeks after the civil case against Kramer was concluded, I decided to visit him in prison. I made sure the guard stayed to monitor our conversation. When Kramer entered the room, he saw me and tried to leave, but the guard insisted he stay. He glared at me and sneered, "What do you want, you bastard?" Ignoring his insults, I said, "How intriguing. I found out your wife, Jessica, has filed for divorce, and I was thinking about inviting her to dinner to give her a special evening." Kramer's face flushed with anger, and he started to shout, but I interrupted him with a smirk. "Don't waste your breath. I've already asked Jessica out on a date. You know, the one with the hummingbird tattoo on her thigh." I watched as his anger turned to shame. Before he could threaten me, he paused, realizing it wouldn't help him. "But I'm not here to talk about Jessica," I continued. "I just wanted to remind you how stupid you've been. Think about it. Threatening a man in his own home and imposing consequences for not fulfilling your unreasonable demands isn't intelligence. Even an experienced carpenter would recognize that." I couldn't help but laugh at his growing frustration. "Didn't you say some things are unacceptable to people like me, but quite acceptable to people in your position? Your influence is truly amazing. I bow before your greatness. Maybe it's because of the jumpsuit you're wearing. It suits you so well." I felt his anger intensify, as though he was about to have a breakdown. Finally, I laughed and added, "I'll be sure to enjoy my time with your beautiful wife. It'll be a great evening." I struck back at him, and it felt strangely calming. Story 2. When the evening came to an end, my wife and I waved goodbye to the last guest from the porch, wishing him a Merry Christmas. Hosting holiday parties for our neighbors had become a tradition for Amy and me. What started with just 4 couples had steadily grown over the years. This year, we were excited to invite more than 35 people, about a third of whom didn't even live in our area. The increase in guests was likely due to the festive atmosphere, fueled by plenty of alcohol and slightly naughty games, which had become a favorite part of our gatherings. Each year, the games got bolder but never crossed any lines. Like Amy and me, most of the participants were between the ages of 25 and 35, many of them parents of young children. It wasn't the wild and reckless crowd we had been in our student days. On the contrary, They were responsible young parents who wanted to unwind at least one evening a year. The women in the neighborhood always brought an abundance of food, far more than we could eat, while Amy and I ensured the alcohol supply was plentiful. When several neighbors started bringing friends from outside the area, it didn't concern us much. However, Amy had invited several of her colleagues to the party without telling me first, including her close friend and colleague, Ron Stevens, from the external sales department at their company. They had worked closely together for the past 5 years, spending a lot of time together, especially considering the frequency of their trips and participation in sales conferences. Just a few days before the party, he had become the subject of some heated discussions in our family. Ron's presence at the party prevented me from enjoying myself. I decided to help Amy with the cleaning and garbage collection. By the time I returned, she was nearly finished in the kitchen. It was time to talk to her. "Why did you invite Ron and your colleagues to our neighborhood party?" I asked, my voice tense. "I like their company, so I thought it would be great if they came. I think they had a good time and fit well with our group." "What's the problem?" she replied, seemingly oblivious to my frustration. "Are you serious, Amy? You know how I feel about your relationship with him, and you invited him to our house." Depressed. "This is our home, Mark. I can invite anyone I want to our party. I don't need your approval," she snapped. I felt my anger rise. "Do you think it's appropriate to humiliate me by exposing your boyfriend in front of our friends and colleagues?" I demanded, noticing the smirks and raised eyebrows from the guests. "What's going on? I've told you many times. Ron is not my boyfriend. No one mocked you. It's just your groundless jealousy, which is already pretty boring," she said dismissively. "Did you really think no one noticed you sneaking upstairs with him? What are you up to, Amy? Why did you need to be alone with Mr. Wonderful?" Depressed. She hesitated. "I'm sorry, but we didn't go upstairs. He just needed to use the bathroom, and downstairs was busy." I quickly showed him the guest bathroom. "I was there for no more than a minute or two. Your accusations are groundless." But I wasn't convinced. "You disappeared for more than 30 minutes. I saw Gail trying to distract me. She was keeping track of the time." Amy's attempts to dismiss my suspicions were only fueling my anger. "You're being paranoid," she said. But Gail's overly friendly attempts only made me more suspicious. It was clear that her negotiation skills were better than her ability to deceive me. Amy's sudden invitation to Ron, her lover, was the ultimate betrayal. It was the final straw that made me decide I would no longer tolerate dishonesty and disrespect. While she continued to pour out insults and lies, I turned around and went upstairs. I grabbed my toiletries in the bathroom, but as I bent down to pick up a fallen deodorant, something caught my eye. A gold foil wrapper in the trash. My heart started pounding. I recognized it immediately, a contraceptive package. After the birth of our second child, I had a vasectomy, so I knew it wasn't mine. This confirmed my suspicions. My wife was cheating on me. Amy burst through the bathroom door, hurling insults, accusing me of being paranoid. I slowly turned to face her, holding the foil in my hands. "This is not paranoia, Amy. This is the truth," I said, my voice steady. "Maybe someone planted this as a joke," she muttered, trying to deflect. "I didn't do anything wrong," she insisted. "It was just a mistake." But I wasn't listening anymore. "I've had enough, Amy. It's over. I can't forgive this," I said, the words heavy with finality. "This is not what I wanted, but I understand that you didn't expect me to find evidence of your deception. That was your big mistake." I could see her starting to panic, her excuses unraveling, but I was beyond reason now. "Let me explain what happened. You ran away from the party and got intimate with your lover while I was downstairs with our friends. Did it fascinate you? sleeping with him in our house while I was downstairs. I demanded. No, it wasn't like that. Please, dear, let me explain everything, she pleaded, but I was done. I quickly pocketed the foil as Amy stepped aside to avoid me. Her pleas fell on deaf ears as I made my way past her into the guest bedroom. I didn't look back. I slammed the door and locked it, ignoring Amy's desperate pleas. Just in case, I dragged a chest of drawers to block the door, knowing she probably didn't know how to pick the lock. Her screams, demanding an explanation, were muffled as I firmly insisted on my own decision not to open the door. The knocking grew louder, but I didn't budge. I turned on the TV and cranked up the volume, trying to drown out the noise. Sleep felt impossible as my mind replayed all the times Amy had stayed late, gone on trips, or attended conferences. Was she talking to Ron during those moments? Was she with him? The thought consumed me, unbearable yet undeniable. A tear rolled down my cheek. My stomach twisted at the thought of having to explain the separation to our daughters. How could she betray her children like that? How could she be so selfish? What made her bring another man into our family? Was I not enough as a husband? Endless questions, overwhelming doubts, heartache, and anger clouded my mind. Sleep slipped away, and the morning sun mocked me, streaming through the window. I reluctantly got out of bed, knowing that this Sunday would be anything but restful. I pushed aside the chest of drawers and walked out of the room into the hallway. The door was ajar, and I caught a glimpse of Amy lying on the bed. I closed the door softly, heading to the guest bathroom to freshen up. After getting dressed, I made my way to the kitchen to pour myself a cup of coffee. As I carried my drink to the table, Amy walked into the room. Despite her disheveled appearance, swollen eyes, tousled hair, a red nose, and traces of a hangover, she still looked amazing. Another wave of pain overwhelmed me. How could this happen to us? I stood there, perplexed, staring at her coffee cup next to the pot. As always, I poured the perfect amount of skim milk without even thinking. She poured herself a cup and sat down at the table across from me. "Mark," she began, her voice heavy with regret, "I've ruined everything. I thought I was being so smart, hoping to teach you a lesson. But now I see my mistake. I was stupid to try to shock you, and everything turned against me. I deeply regret my actions and apologize. You didn't deserve to be treated like this, and I understand that you're mad at me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to feel this anger," I replied, my voice dry. "It was very nice of you to invite your boyfriend to our house without thinking about the situation. Dear, please let me start from the beginning," she pleaded. "It's too late to explain your plans now. All our neighbors saw how you implemented your action plan last night," I said firmly. Amy hurried to my chair, turning me away from the table. She sat on my lap and hugged me tightly. "Please let me explain everything. Give me 5 minutes, Mark," she begged. I turned away from her, avoiding her attempt to kiss me on the cheek. Tears streamed down her face as she begged for forgiveness, but anger boiled inside me. I resisted the urge to act. I couldn't bring myself to hurt her, no matter how much she deserved it. I took a deep breath and pulled myself together. "Okay, Amy, 5 minutes. Now, please get off me," I said, my voice resolute. "I can't risk you leaving before I tell you everything," she insisted. I glanced at the watch on my left wrist, realizing how foolish I had been the night before, all because of Ron and his stupid decisions. Okay, I said, raising an eyebrow. "You've made it clear that you don't trust him and doubt my ability to handle him. Even if I swore I didn't have romantic feelings for him, you wouldn't believe me. You seem to think I was an innocent teenage girl, easily convinced by a salesman. as if I'd ever fall for his flirty phrases or any other guy's tricks. She continued, her voice growing defensive. Of course, he tried to flirt with me like so many others. Even some of my clients tried to sweeten the deal by hitting on me. But let me make it clear, I'm not naive. I'm well aware of my appearance, and guys will always try to flirt with me. But I always stand my ground and say no. Naturally, I mastered the art of politely refusing with a smile so as not to hurt someone's ego. But my refusal was always decisive. Having withstood your persistent courtship, as it seemed to me for the 40th or 50th time, I reached my limit and decided to demonstrate the stupidity of your behavior with Ron and Gail's help. I came up with a plan. I knew you'd notice me going upstairs with Ron. In fact, we had to wait until you finished filling your bowl with ice so you would face the stairs, where our plan was implemented. Gail made it clear that she would distract you while we went upstairs. Everything was going according to plan. I brought Ron into our room and sat him down in a chair. I waited for a while, but it became clear that you weren't going to come up to confront me. When I was intoxicated, I didn't realize how much pain I had caused you. I thought you had just given up on me, and I burst into tears. Ron came up to me and hugged me tenderly while I let the tears flow. His gentle touch on my back and hair offered me comfort, easing the pain. When I regained my composure, I tried to pull away, but he surprised me with a kiss. Caught off guard, I hesitated for a moment before pushing him away. I interrupted the intimate moment, feeling disappointed, and demanded an explanation for his actions. Grinning, he remarked that he knew my initial approach had been a ploy to bring him closer. Now that we were face to face, it was time to reveal our true intentions. I leaned forward, took off one shoe, and threw it at him, hitting him squarely in the chest. He recoiled, meeting my gaze for the first time with an expression that registered my anger. Without saying a word, he quickly headed to the bathroom. It seemed like he got rid of the contraceptives, flushed the toilet, and threw the foil in the trash. During his retreat, I didn't expect such stupidity from him. I immediately told Gail about his actions, and she took matters into her own hands, punching him in the ears before leaving. If necessary, I could easily contact her for confirmation. Watching her closely, she slowly got up, grabbed me by the shoulders, and sat down on my lap. I pushed her away, picked up my coffee cup, and walked to the coffee maker. As I filled my cup, I sat down next to her. Mark, please talk to me. I understand that you're upset about what happened, but I want you to know that I didn't cheat. I shared with you the truth about the situation. I never wanted to be with him. Like many of us, he was a little drunk last night and made a mistake. Kissing was never part of my plans. He's stupid, and I don't need any problems at work. But on Monday, Gail and I will make sure he answers for his actions. Darling, I'm sorry. Will you ever be able to forgive me? I looked at her, realizing how she had set up the situation so I could see it. You expected me to get angry and storm upstairs to interrupt my unfaithful wife's intimacy with her boyfriend on my bed. And then, when I walked in and saw you two chatting innocently, I suppose you were going to mock and tease me for being a jealous partner. Of course, Gail was going to bring the rest of your colleagues upstairs after me, so they could join in the ridicule of your two stupid jokes, right? Maybe you wanted to make such a spectacle so the rest of the party would gather quickly and join in the laughter at the jealous fool. She looked at me, shocked. So that was your strategy? Did you think that by shaming me in front of everyone, you would prove once and for all that I should trust you and never doubt your loyalty? I sighed, the pain and betrayal clear in my voice. I just wanted you to see the fallacy of your actions toward Ron. You've constantly drawn the wrong conclusions. I was so hurt that you thought that of me. I thought our party would prove the opposite to you. But when I started interfering with you, it ruined your fun. You got so angry that you decided to punish me in a different way. What lesson are you talking about? Amy asked, still confused. What do you mean you let Ron end up on my bed while I was downstairs pretending I didn't understand anything? I shook my head. It was probably a worthy revenge for the fact that I disrupted your plans. Oh my God, we're back to this again. Amy sighed, frustrated. You told your side of the story, but it wasn't the full truth. You missed some details. I'm sure you and Gail spent a lot of time last night reworking a version of events with at least a little bit of truth to make it seem plausible. I don't understand what you're trying to say, Mark. I've admitted that I was wrong. Let's forget about my stupid joke and end this argument, she said, trying to wrap things up. I disagree, I replied, pulling a plastic bag out of my pocket. This is your way of getting back at me. This is the part of your story that you hid from me. It shows that I can't believe anything you've said. Amy examined the bag, trying to make out its contents. I rocked her slightly in my arms, and as she narrowed her eyes, I couldn't help but smile at the shock on her face. Ron really was a complete idiot. He tied it up before flushing the water so that the air bubble would keep it afloat. I got up in the middle of the night to go to the toilet and found it floating in the toilet tank. This jerk didn't even bother to check if he had flushed. Amy stared at me with her mouth open. Oh my God. I'm really sorry, I continued. I'm sorry I lied to you. You're right. I was so angry when you didn't follow me. I was so drunk that I made the stupid decision to sleep with Ron. Amy lowered her head, tears falling as she realized the full extent of her actions. I thought it was a way to teach you a lesson, but looking back, I realize how stupid it was, she said softly. Everything I did was stupid. My plan to teach you a lesson was to make love to Ron. I screwed up really badly. I could feel the weight of her regret, but I couldn't ignore the devastation that had built up inside me. What does this mean for our relationship? Is this the end for us? Will I be able to withstand the consequences of one outburst of anger and frustration that led to my constant doubts? The questions consumed me. I had felt a shift in Amy a few months ago, but I couldn't pinpoint why. Why did I suspect she was cheating on me with Ron? Why did she feel the need to prove Ron wasn't a threat, at least until her anger and intoxication got the better of her? It shocked me that she considered a secret affair with Ron a suitable form of payback for my mistake. This wasn't the woman I had married. Intimacy had lost its meaning for her, to the point where she could use it as a punishment. The idea that intimacy could be wielded as a tool for manipulation rather than as an expression of love was disheartening. I realized she had become a skilled manipulator. Gail, her mentor, must have taught her well. Gail, the experienced sales manager, had always outperformed her male competitors. She had taken Amy under her wing, showing her how to dominate negotiations with male clients. When Amy started excelling in her leadership role, she knew she had Gail to thank for it. The bonuses had allowed us to save for our children's college education and cover our expenses. But what was the true cost? It was time to find out. I clapped slowly, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Bravo! Bravo! It was a great show. Your quick thinking is impressive. Gail has certainly trained you well. You soon realized that Ron had defeated you, and now you're tearfully apologizing, hoping I won't notice your one mistake. You think that in a moment of frustration and intoxication, you can convince the father of your children to forgive you, especially for the sake of our kids. It's a smart strategy, knowing how much I love and care about them. I paused, letting the silence sink in before continuing. I'm ready to put aside my anger over a mistake to protect our innocent children. Of course, I would do anything for them. Now I understand that you deliberately wanted to embarrass me to teach me a lesson. You also admitted your mistake, made while intoxicated. When I interfered with your plan, you took responsibility for your actions and apologized to me. What else can you do? Amy froze, her eyes searching my face for a sign of what was coming next. Amy, I said softly, I believe your explanation about Ron at the party. I apologize for doubting you and thinking you were having an affair. I now understand that what happened was a one-time mistake. I believe you when you say it will never happen again. Can we get through this and try to regain control of the situation together? I love you very much, my dear. I'm trying my best to forgive the pain you caused me, but I still have unresolved questions. I leaned back, exhausted by the lies and deception. What do you mean by others? I should have noticed the signs when I first met Gail and heard the rumors, but I trusted you. My intuition kept telling me something was wrong, and now I realize I was right all along. I was wrong about Ron, but my fears about you were justified, weren't they? Why should I have been worried? I sighed deeply, feeling emotionally drained. I don't understand, Amy. I don't have concrete evidence, but I feel like I lost you a long time ago. The woman I once loved is no longer here. Gail undoubtedly pointed the way to wealth and success, but in the end, it was you, Amy, who chose this path. You voluntarily ignored the promises and began providing intimate services. It doesn't matter why you did it, whether for self-esteem, quick profit, or fleeting excitement. The reason doesn't matter. What matters is that you made those choices. I watched the shock on her face as she processed my words. It was brief, but I saw it before she regained control and forced a smile. Mark, honey, I thought we were fine, she said, her voice soft. I've already admitted my mistake with Ron, but I have no idea what you're talking about right now. I don't know what you think you know, but I just want to get this nonsense over with and move on. Let's clean up and get our daughters. I know they like being with their grandparents, but they miss their dad. I looked at her, feeling a mix of anger and resignation. I spent the rest of the day with our daughters, trying to block out the chaos of the situation as I considered my next steps. The following Monday, I visited my lawyer and officially filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. Despite the lawyer's warning not to have high hopes, I requested joint custody of the girls, with me as the primary guardian. To avoid drawing attention, I sent Amy off to work. Shortly after receiving confirmation of the successful completion of the service, my phone rang. Are you serious? Are you really thinking of divorcing me because of the situation with Ron? Amy's voice trembled. I understand nothing. It was a mistake, a stupid mistake. We've discussed everything thoroughly. Please think about our daughters. You love them more than anything in the world. I will accept any punishment, but please don't destroy our family. I sighed, frustration bubbling up. I've already told you, Ron is not the main problem. I can't be with the person you've turned into. It's all nonsense. I'm worried about you, Amy. Obviously, it's hard for you to forgive my mistake, and I understand that. But the divorce could have a negative impact on our daughters. We need to find a way to deal with this. Perhaps a psychologist's consultation might help. Do you want me to organize it? I felt a shift within myself, the weight of it all finally sinking in. Please, sign the papers, Amy. Once that happens, you can live freely. The girls and I can handle it on our own. They can stay with me when you're not home, and you can visit them whenever you want. Stop dreaming, she snapped. There will be no divorce. I will never let you take my daughters away from me. Stop this nonsense now. If you challenge me, there will be consequences. My heart sank at her words, but I stayed firm. Mark, I care about you. Please, don't make me fight, she pleaded. An hour later, my phone rang again. It was Gail. Order your student to sign the documents, she said, her voice cold. This is the only choice you have. Once she signs the contract, the girls will stay with me. You can continue to exploit her for your clients. Naive boy, you have no evidence she was engaged in anything beyond the meeting with Ron, which did not take place on my instructions. But I'm sure you're savvy enough. I don't need proof. I just need to make the statement loudly and publicly. I clenched my jaw, my anger rising. I have to make sure you understand, she continued. Someone will gather evidence. It will lead to an investigation that you don't want right now. Are you ready to destroy her out of revenge? Don't forget, the girls will suffer if the truth comes out. She'll sign the papers or I'll do it publicly. If this information becomes public, I'll involve you in the process too. I hung up after that, feeling defeated. The following week, my lawyer received the signed papers. Amy moved into a nice apartment about 2 miles from our house. She visits the girls often and attends their school and sports events. We don't talk much anymore, but recently, I saw her and Gail coming out of a fancy restaurant. As I pulled into the parking lot, they approached my car. Gail opened the door, then turned to Amy and pulled her into a passionate kiss. I was stunned. I had no idea Amy liked women. Now, it made sense why Gail had such a strong influence on her. I realized I never truly understood Amy. But as the shock wore off, I realized I was grateful. I was moving on. I'm not sure if I'll ever get married again, but if I do, I'll definitely ask a lot more questions before making a decision. This experience has taught me a valuable lesson. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.